practical, otherwise like I said it's going to be Greek. What are you talking? Now look at this. This is an interesting site. You can even check in Sri Lanka how will be the temperature, the different scenarios. 0.5 scenarios. Now climate related scenario is a section in S2 standard, S1 and S2. Now without practical understanding, if you just read, you may not understand. Now see here 1.5, I have clicked 1.5. That means temperature rise 1.5. You can scan, even in Sri Lanka map we can put and scan here to understand, you know, this red zone means in future, this predicts the future, right? Days above 32 Celsius, right? That's going to be extremely warmer, and then can companies or people can work there? What are the implications? So that's where now climate scenarios have come. See, reaching 1.5 is likely by 2030, and the probability, if you take this scenario, right, and the probability of stopping warming below 1.5 is almost zero, right? That means temperature is going to go above 1.5. So now it's very, very important, because I really recommend you to write few things. At the end of this lecture, have one clean page of this is what I learned. Please write, when it comes to climate risk management, you can do two things. Now, can you avoid this? You need to adapt. Now, can I stop the flood now that Spain event? Even the people are now complaining, the warning came at the last minute. Right, only few hours, suddenly people have realized the water level has come up to this, right? I mean, there is very short time. So what I want to say, we can't avoid this. That's one of the strategies, adaptation, right? Climate adaptation. Now that means if there is a flood or very hudhud or natural disaster comes, you are resilient. You can change operation. I'll show you now in this presentation. I'm going to talk about Sri Lanka companies like Dialog. They have early adopted standards. Haleys. So there are a lot of cases that I will cover, and international cases as well. So what I want to say, please write two strategies. One is climate adaptation. The other one is mitigation. Adaptation means, okay, this will happen. If it happens, I am going to be ready. I have alternative. I can switch my operation from location A to B and run my business. So that is about your business continuity if this scenario happens. But in terms of actually reducing emission and saving the planet, what is your duty? That is where you mitigate. That is where you account for your scope 1. Scope 1 means what you burn. Now, if you are running your generators with diesel, that is scope 1 emission. I am now explaining to you scope 1. What you buy from CEB, right? The purchased, right? Then you have to look at your scope 2, and then the goods that you purchase, you are purchasing some material from a supplier whose emission is very high. So that's your scope 3. Look at your value chain. Now, scope 1, 2, 3. As a company, are you actually reduce your emission, direct and indirect? Now all of your employees are coming using separate vehicle, right? So that is emission. Be mindful about it. The air travel, all of that, all are part of carbon accounting, right? So now climate risk mitigation, I am making you a very big point. There is no slide here, but remember two things that I said. How to manage climate change risk, adaptation, you prepare. That's climate resilience. If something happens, I am ready with a backup plan. Secondly, I am genuinely going to reduce global warming. I am supporting Paris Agreement 2030. I am going to be net zero by 2030 or 40. I am going to reduce my, when I say I am, company setting a target. They have given SBTI commitment. Please write this word SBTI. So that is science-based target. Internationally, you can give you a carbon inventory. This is my carbon emission. They will validate and give a pledge, right, target that now you can see a lot of newspapers, this company says we are going to be net zero by 2020, 30, 40, whatever date. That is really where you are going to contribute in terms of reducing this risk. That is risk mitigation. So we learn those two. Remember IFRS S2, all of this we are going to learn. Now this background knowledge is going to be very, very useful when we discuss. So what makes planet warmer, right? This is a very important slide, and this slide actually captures that standard that I mentioned to you. Scope 1, 2, 3 emission, but I'll cover in little detail, but quickly what I explained to you, what you burn, scope 1. So one easy word is what you burn, right? Companies, facilities, companies, vehicles, scope 1. Whereas when you purchase energy from CEB, for example, right, purchase for your use or heating or cooling purpose, so those scope 2. But what is more difficult, there are 15 categories. Let's see here all 15s are mentioned or not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Look at the value chain, these are upstream. I am purchasing raw material, let us say I am manufacturing, say you are manufacturing garments and you are purchasing fabric from a textile, from a textile company, and then they are suppliers, they are purchasing yarn, right? So for example, they are the purchase goods from my suppliers. How can I calculate their emission, right? And you can see the business travel, everything here. Transport, now this is upstream of the value chain, as you know, that is a part of your upstream. Downstream is your distribution, sales, that part of it. Now there are again transportation, how your products are going to the consumer, right? Now you see here there are 8 categories. If you put the numbers 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, these are the 15 categories. Now how about where you invest? You have invested equity investment, but that is a company where emission is very high. When you consolidate, will it come to your balance sheet, carbon accounting? Yes, it may come to your boundaries. So this is what you will learn. This standard is very, very important, and we will cover. At least now you understood scope 1, 2, 3, why. Now it's very easy for me to cover in a little while the standards, because now you have learned most of the background topics. Then this is something I already spoke. If you want to manage climate risk, there are 2 things: adaptation, what actions you are going to do to build resilience. Resilience means you have a plan. I'll show you how Sri Lankan companies have disclosed this. Mitigation is where you are going to really reduce your emission. That I already covered. So I'm happy I covered it. This is practically how S1 and S2 has been applied. This is not S1 and S2, but this is TCFD. TCFD was there. Like I said earlier, TCFD is very similar. I mean, they have really used TCFD in developing S1 and S2. Now, this is practical applications. When it comes to your annual report, financial statements, you are supposed to explain, quantify the impact of these climate related risks when it comes to S2 standard, because S2 standard is about your climate risk. Remember, now after giving this background, the next half an hour is to carefully study. This is S1, this is S2. So I have made a strong foundation on which you can build on, right? So that's why we are practically going through this case, then we can easily move on. This is Shell annual report. They explain transition risk, transition to a low carbon economy, right? Now we learn transition risk means what is the risk, okay, how their financials are going to be affected. How? Because the people may not buy petroleum product, lower sales, right? Because they want to reduce or eliminate oil, gas products, and they are moving to renewable energy sources. So that will drop. So they need to now do some innovation. Preferences accordingly, preferences of investors, even bank loan, they may not be able to take, and they may not be able to access to finance. Cost of capital may rise. This is extremely important, because when you identify a SRRO, you need to check 3 things. What are the 3 things? One thing is access to finance, right? Now your cost of capital, right? And I'll show you all 3. Now here both are there, right? Access to finance, increase cost. And this is called your financial prospect. Another word is financial prospect. Now don't worry about this. I am going to show these 3 again when it comes to S1 standard. right? So SRRO is all about if you are going to be impacted, your access to finance or cost of capital, then investors, that is why it is IFRS now, because now the bankers are not going to give loan, you need to disclose this in the accounts, right? They may give you a loan, you might say, look here, we have plans, right? That's where the mitigation comes. So this is shell regulatory risk, which is a part of transition risk. Look at the numbers. They are paying 493 million, right? Cost of compliance with EU emission trading scheme. So that's the cost. And then Shell annual carbon cost exposure is expected to increase over the next decade because of evolving carbon regulation, because the regulations are becoming tougher, and then the cost rise is going to be 8.8 billion, right? And around 1.5 billion in 2032. So remember, they are not talking 1 year here. That's one thing very important about climate risk. You need to define your time horizon within 1 year, within 5 years, 10 years, and so on. And this is litigation. I already explained to you the legal case where, now this is very important because you understand scope 1, 2, 3 now, at least little understanding, right? So now the court wanted their consolidated emission, right? Reduce your scope 1, 2, 3 emission by 45%. First of all, you need to understand your scope 1, 2, 3, right? In 2019, scope 1 emission from consolidated subsidiaries 86 million tons. See, 86 million tons consolidated emission. Right, so now you have a very solid background, and with that we are better able to understand or study the standards